It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Bruce Shelton. Bruce is our senior pastor of this fellowship, and he is on the board of directors. He wears many hats and does many behind-the-scenes activities and functions so we can keep going. Bruce retired this year from community work as a professional licensed counselor. And I see Bruce affecting the lives of so many people with kindness and compassion and willingness to be of service. And to me, this expresses his deep connection with his spiritual life. So we love and appreciate you, Bruce, and I ask that you help me welcome Bruce to the podium.
Thank you. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. It's indeed a pleasure to have this opportunity to talk to you this morning. And today we're going to cover two topics. First topic is what's in the air. You know, there's something in the energy of this month. I want to take a look at that. And secondly, we want to talk about Jesus. Who was he? What was his gift to the world? What were his teachings? And thirdly, I'd like us to take a look at Mary. How does Mary relate to us? So those are the three topics. As is my tradition, I always like to start by asking you to help me with this talk. If we could all just be silent for a few moments. And let's ask Holy Spirit just to talk through me today as his speaker and to say the words that will be of the most help to you. Thank you, Lord. All right. Well, Pharrell Williams, we all know Pharrell. He's the one that a great singer, and he's become real popular in our area because he introduced this festival that happens in the spring called Something in the Water. Well, I'd like to suggest that there's something in the air during this month of December that's different than any other month of the year. And I'd like to explain this attempt to explain why this month is unique. See, part of the problem is we're so used to it. You know, we're so used to the festivities and everything of what happens this particular month that we just take it for granted. But why? Why is this all happening this month? So I'd like to suggest a postulate, okay? Now, aside from Lloyd, probably nobody knows what a postulate is, right? But so I'm going to read to you Webster's explanation of it. It says a postulate is suggest or assume the existence of something as a basis for reasoning, discussion, or belief. Okay, that's a postulate. So my postulate is this: during the period of time beginning on Thanksgiving Day and climaxing on Christmas morning, the Spirit of God penetrates the veil that separates us from God more freely and easily than in any other time of the year. Okay? So what is this veil I'm talking about? The veil that separates us from God is this. Basically, it's like a cloud bank. You know, when the clouds are up there, we can't see the sun. It's a cloud bank, right? The cloud's clear, we see the sun. The sun shines brightly on us. Well, we're in a predicament in that we have created this cloud bank around us. Some people call it a veil. The Hindus have a great name for it, the veil of Maya, the veil of illusion. But we've created this veil, you see, which is created by us, and it consists of all of our fear-based negative thoughts and feelings, okay? And these are thoughts and feelings that we've created during the course of our life, and they separate us from God, okay? Now, we can penetrate this veil through the practice of prayer and meditation, and sometimes it just happens naturally. You know, we just have a really good day. We can feel all this joy and love in our hearts. And so my belief is that during this month, because this is the month that we celebrate the birth of Jesus, the birth of the Christ presence within us, millions and millions and millions of people around the world do this every year. And I think that's the explanation, you see, for why this happens. Now, I have 4 pieces of evidence to present to you to support my postulate, okay? The postulate's a nice theory, right? But show me the evidence, right? Well, number 1, lights. Golly, we go around the city and these gorgeous lights everywhere, Sometimes we make special trips with our friends just to go to a neighborhood because that neighborhood's got a reputation for being lit up, right? And in our front yards, we put lights in our houses. We have lights coming out, and this beautiful Christmas tree over here, created by Susan and some friends. And you go to downtown Norfolk, the whole skyline is lit up. And you can go to any city in the Western Hemisphere and see the exact same thing. Now, this is not normal, right? This doesn't happen during any other month of the year, right? It's unique to December, you see. And why? Well, light is traditionally an expression of God, right? Jesus said, "Ye are the light of the world. Let your light so shine that men may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven." And our great invocation we sing every Sunday, we just sang it, starts off with, it says, "From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth." Well, what's happening? Light is descending on earth in December, right? Isn't that interesting? Second exhibit I've got here, piece of evidence. Second piece of evidence has to do with gift giving. Everybody wants to give gifts, Now, we do this during the year for birthdays and special occasions, weddings, but it's not normal for there to be this almost a universal desire, right, to give gifts, whether you're religious or not. Now, isn't that interesting, Now, what is gift giving? Gift giving is love made manifest. I think one of the readings today made mention to that. Gift giving is love made manifest. It's God made manifest, you see? And we want to give gifts so badly that I know when I used to work as a probation and parole officer, I'd sometimes have a guy who just got out of prison recently, and he hadn't had time to get a job. He'd come into my office in December. He'd say, "Bruce, I'm so depressed right now. I've been away the past 3 years. I'm finally home with my kids now. I've got all these children. I want to give them presents, and I have no money." It actually was hurting him. That's how badly he had a desire to give gifts. And so that's an extreme example. But there's this really amazing compulsive need to give gifts during this month, unique once again to December. The last piece of evidence is really, actually there's 2 more. The third is actually, we have this guy in December called Santa Claus that's floating around in the air on a sled carried by 12 reindeers. And this fellow, Santa Claus, lands on every little good boy and girl's house at the exact same time, 12 midnight on Christmas Eve. Amazing. And he gives them gifts, exactly what they want, right? Tongue twister there. And now, doesn't Santa have a remarkable resemblance to Jesus, to the Christed soul? Yeah, he's a being of pure love, unconditional love. He goes about the world doing good. He has the remarkable ability of to be omnipresent, right? At the top of every house at the exact same time. And he has an inexhaustible supply of gifts, you see, to give to people, right? So my thoughts is that, like we have this deep, at the core of our being, we have the Christ presence, and this presence is seeking to be expressed. And so we create this secular version of Jesus, you see, that's universal. You don't have to be religious, you see. And this man is representing all that Jesus stands for. It's the Christed being, the highest we can be, a good person, right? And lastly, let's take a moment to think about music. During this month, it's amazing. There's more music for this season than for any other month of the year, specifically for this month. You see, we sang the 3 songs this morning. We had fun doing it, you see. And why is that? You know, why is it we have so many Christmas songs? Some are secular, like, you know, Jolly Old St. Nicholas, and others are spiritual, Joy to the World. I like Edgar Casey. He said that one time that in one of his readings that music is the bridge that joins the infinite with the finite, okay? Music is the bridge that connects the infinite with the finite. So what better way to express love and perfection and joy than music, you see? So those are my 4 pieces of evidence to support my postulate that somehow the veil is more thin this month. You see, there's a lot of energy in the air, which is a really wonderful thing, providing we can connect into the positive part of that energy. Now, who is this man Jesus? Well, we all know about Jesus. Jesus came into this world some 2,000 years ago. Scholars say they believe it was around 7 BC. And he was a being of pure love. And he was born to the Virgin Mary, we're told. And why is it that he came in at that particular time? Well, I like to use a clock metaphor. Imagine a clock, right? At 12 o'clock, you and I and all humanity are in the presence of God. We are living literally in the kingdom of heaven. And Genesis talks about the Garden of Eden. This is the same thing. We're all there with God. Now, there's only one thing we got to do, and that is we've got to make decisions that are in accordance with the laws of the universe. That's all we got to do. In other words, we got to be constructive, not destructive. And of course, now when God made us, He knew we were going to be giving us free will. He knew we were going to make mistakes. He knew the only way we'd learn to use our free will properly was to learn how to use it improperly. And so He knew we were going to make mistakes. And so what did Adam and Eve do? They eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Adam and Eve represent you and I. And when they were cast out of the Garden of Eden, and they found themselves in this barren earth. Totally different environment. Is really tough. Planet Earth is a tough place to live. Now, it's not all bad. This fruit we ate is good and evil. So there was a lot of good here. But it was the evil part that we had problems with, because that caused a lot of suffering. And rather than realizing, okay, we made a mistake, God, can we come back into the Garden of Eden now? What do? We keep making mistakes. Cain kills Abel, right? The first recorded murder in the Bible, first of many, unfortunately. And it just gets worse. And so as the clock, wars, genocide, and so forth. So as the clock now turns, it's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, we find ourselves falling further and further away from the presence of God, okay? Farther and farther away from our home. And the suffering becomes greater and greater. So that when the clock gets to 6 o'clock, we're as far away from God as we can be. And we have created so much negative karma that we really needed help to get out of this. We really couldn't get out of it as a race, a collective, as a human race. And so this is when Jesus appears. And He's rightly called the Savior of the world, because he literally turned the clock around, so that now, ever since Jesus' time, using this clock metaphor, we've been slowly returning back home to God. And I really like that metaphor, because it kind of puts in perspective what Jesus did. It's like He put a medicine injected a medicine into our arms back in 2,000 years ago. That medicine is slowly working. We're slow learners, you know. It's not the medicine's fault, just we're slow learners. And little by little, we're getting it. The world, this is hard to believe, but the world today is a better place than it was 2,000 years ago. It's hard to believe this, but there's more love in the world today, much more love than there was 2,000 years ago. So slowly, we're evolving, you see, that we're slowly going back home. And Jesus is the great teacher that basically kind of turned us around and is now getting us to go back, helping us to return back home. Now, interestingly, Jesus referred to Himself as the Son of God, right? several times in the Bible. We all know that. He also called himself the Son of Man, right? Now, interestingly, he referred to himself as the Son of Man many more times than he did as the Son of God. As a matter of fact, scholars tell us that he referred to himself as the Son of Man over 80 times in the New Testament. He did that because he wanted to emphasize his humanity. Hey guys, I'm one of you. You know, I'm not this Greek god that came down from wherever and I'm creating all these miracles and I'm going to go back to my Greek godland, right? No, I'm not like that. I'm a human being just like you, right? One way I like to understand it is Jesus is the Son of Man, Christ is the Son of God. And he's taught us that I am the Son of God and so are you. This is where mainstream Christianity missed the boat, you know. We're all, he said, you're all the sons and daughters of God, you know. And the things I do, you can do likewise and even greater things. Jesus said that. Wow. About me, that's what he said, and it's true. He came to help us to awaken just as he had awakened. To me, it's helpful to use this metaphor of a mountain, right? And at the top of the mountain is the presence of God, okay? When we get to the top of the mountain, the part of us that is one with God is we make that connection, and then that Christ's presence within us then is able to connect with the greater whole, you see? The drop of ocean is able to connect with the ocean when we get to the top of the mountain, okay? So Jesus is there. He's made it, right? We're down here in the valley, you see, and the valley's got this cloud bank above it, and in the valley is all this, some beautiful things down here, but there's also just so much pain and suffering, right? Everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? You know, and there's a lot of suffering down here. So our work, you see, is to climb up the mountain. And Jesus is saying, I'll help you. All you got to do is ask, you see. And so this mountain is very tricky, and there's lots of U-turns, and if you don't have help, it's really, really hard to make it to the top. And so Jesus is there to lead us to the top of the mountain. One of the great teachings I think Jesus has that we often overlook are just the first two words of the Lord's Prayer. I've talked about this many times. Some of you have heard this before. But I love those first two words. What are they? Our Father, right? And those two words, Jesus teaches us an entire philosophy of religion. Just those two words. Our Father. This tells us that God is our perfect, unconditionally loving Father, okay? Not just a Father, but the perfect Father. And that's huge, because the teachers and sages before Jesus taught about this God of a grim mercy. It was a God of justice, but it was a God of grim mercy, you know. And now Jesus says, okay, they needed that back then. That was the only way they could behave themselves, was to fear God. He says, I'm teaching you about, let's raise the level here a little bit. God is your perfect, loving Father. Just so those two words teach us that. Number two, they teach us that Jesus is our elder brother. He did not say, my Father which art in heaven. No, it's a big difference. You see, it's usually different. He says, our Father which are in heaven. And that means that Jesus is our brother, but he's our elder brother. He's the one that's a little bit further along than we, not a little bit further, he's way ahead of the rest of us. Sorry about that. Way ahead of the rest of us, but he says, come on, join me. This is the way. And thirdly, these two words teach us that everybody else is our brothers and our sisters. It's like we're all one family. You say, our Father. And so these two words really teach us so much. Now, the last thing we'll say about Jesus is that he said that the big teaching that Jesus gave us, that medicine I was referring to, that he injected into our bodies some 2,000 years ago, our collective body, he taught us about love. You know, he said love is the way home. You know, what the scribes were tempting him. What's the most important commandments? Well, we all know, right? The most important commandment is that we love the Lord our God with all our body, mind, and soul. Second commandment is like unto it, that we love our neighbor even, we love our neighbor even as ourselves. And I think if he was here today, he'd have a third commandment. He'd add to that. He'd say, it's also important that we love and respect ourselves, okay? Love and respect our true self. Instead of beating ourselves up and being so, just being so self-critical all the time. Love ourselves. Love God, love your neighbor, love ourselves. That covers all the bases. And he said, that's the way home, right? It's not complicated. So anytime we find ourselves getting lost in negativity, you all know what I'm talking about, criticizing other people, putting people down. 99% of the time, this is in our own head. It's our own thoughts. We find ourselves feeling jealous of somebody, being envious, being angry at somebody. Worst of all is hating somebody. Anytime we find ourselves doing that, what are we doing? We're creating suffering for ourselves. And we're creating suffering. We're adding to the suffering of the world. Why would we want to do that, Okay, I'm aware I'm criticizing somebody. I can't help it. A lot of times these thoughts just come. It's not like I say, I just want to criticize. The thought just comes. We can't help it, okay? What we can do is we can let it go. Just let it go. Okay, I'm finding myself being negative towards them. Let it go. Let it go. Just let it go. It's helpful to me to offer it up to God. Here, God, you take this depression. You take all this anxiety I've got. It's not helping me. It's not solving problems. It's just making me unhappy. Take all the anxiety. Take all the anger, Take all my judgments. One of the biggest things today is the political situation. It's so easy to get, as a mind, as an energy in the collective consciousness, that is, whether you're Republican or whether you're a Democrat, you connect to that energy and your mind can just start going like this about how awful the other side is, right? And let it go. Just let it go. That's a trap. It's a great test, you see. It's a great opportunity for us to grow. All that does is create suffering, right? It creates misery. Here, God, take all this negativity. Now, this is an interesting thing. Once we let go of the negativity, then, and only then, we're in touch more with our center, we can think more clearly. So I can think, now I'm going to still have beliefs about politics, be I a Republican or be I a Democrat, but they're not going to have that fear element, that angry element, which serves no purpose. And it'll be all constructive and good, you see. Nothing wrong with people having differences of opinions. There's a problem when everybody gets upset and angry about it and takes things so personally. That's a big problem. And that's what's happened, unfortunately. So we're identifying the problem. Now we're saying, God, take the problem from us. We just wish to let it go. Doesn't that make sense? You'll find your peace of mind by doing that. You'll lose your peace of mind if you don't. So this all ties into Jesus' teachings about love, you see. The last element I wanted to talk about today was a topic was about Mary. Mary, of course, we know was the mother of Jesus. Mary represents your soul and my soul when we have purified our hearts and our minds to the point that there's absolutely nothing remaining in our minds, right, other than divine love. Okay? That's Mary. It's called Mary consciousness, okay? When we experience Mary consciousness and we're filled with love, then and only then are we able, you see, to have union, spiritual union with God. And it's at that point that the Christ presence, you see, we become aware of the Christ presence. I don't believe that Christ is born at that time. The Christ is within us from the beginning of time, right? We've lost our connection with it. What is born is our awareness of the Christ presence within and of our oneness with God. That happens when we purify our own minds. There's a beautiful beatitude that says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." okay? One of my favorite Beatitudes. What is the pure in heart? The pure in heart is Mary. It's the being that has, well, there's just nothing left now but pure love. And so that's my talk today. It's been a real pleasure talking with you. God bless you and Merry Christmas.